What's up, everybody? It's the Alex Leak and Friends NFL podcast. Back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak. We have a special guest on the show, former Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket and 6-year NFL wide receiver for the Chicago Bears and Atlanta Falcons, Des White. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Des.
Absolutely, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's an honor. Let's start at the beginning. You attended Bowles High School in Jacksonville, Florida. Is that right?
Yeah.
What was it like playing high school football in the Jacksonville, Florida area back in the 90s?
Oh man, it was crazy because the school I went to was a private school, and actually my coach just passed away. My high school coach just passed away earlier this year. He's the winningest coach in Florida football history. Actually, he's up there nationally. So my high school career, I think we only lost 4 games in my high school career.
Damn.
And, we had an awesome team. We were ranked number 1 in the country my senior year. And we lost by 1 point in the state championship game. So he ran it like a college. Like we literally were basically run like a small college. Our program was, all out every day. We had weightlifting sessions in Florida Heat in a closed gym that was in the stadium with no air conditioning, just sweat box. And it was like a near-death experience, like every day. And we had dorms, so we'd actually stay in the dorms and for 2 weeks prior to the season, and we had 3-a-days in Florida Heat. So morning, like 6 a.m. practice, just all agility drills, and then in noon we'd be out doing special teams. And then we have like a 2 or 3 hour practice at night. And we did that for 2 weeks. And so, by the end of that, man, like you were just ready to just conquer the world. So, it was an experience, but it definitely built character and toughness and things that would, help me later on in my career,
Nice. That's cool. Were you always a wide receiver coming up, and was football your favorite sport? Was that like your plan to go NFL? Or?
No and no. So when I was in high school, we ran a wing T. So I started off as a running back my freshman year. We had like 3 all-world running backs. And so I ended up on JV, and I was like a star on JV, but I didn't get to play varsity at all. And I didn't play wide receiver until like maybe 3 or 4 snaps my junior year, near the end of my junior year. And then my senior year, they would just put me in when they were throwing me the ball. Like literally, he would put me in to throw me the ball. Like we didn't have any plays where they put me in and they didn't throw me the ball. I think we came up with like 2 or 3 near the end of my season, my senior year. But we barely threw the ball because our running game we had 3 running backs, a good running quarterback. And, our running game was so good that we rarely threw the ball. So, I would just come in, and then, I was playing safety, and we had 2 All-American defensive ends and an All-American linebacker. So I was bored, man. I never got to do anything because they were so good. Like they just destroyed everybody. I could be in position for a pick and they sacked the guy, And so after I got a chance to play, and I would return kicks and stuff, but after I got a chance to play wide receivers, like every time I got it, I scored. I was like, okay, I want to play wide receiver. Yeah. And so we were literally getting in a 3-point stance at wide receiver. Like that's how our high school was. Like our coach let me get in a 2-point stance, but all the rest of our receivers were still in a 3-point stance. And oddly enough, he went to Georgia Tech. So I committed to Ohio State after my junior year. Okay. And during the summer, I went up there because I have family up there. I committed to Ohio State. I went up to their camp over the summer. They had never heard of me. By the time I left there, it was me and one quarterback. His name was David Priestley from California. They were dead set on getting us to come there. And, I kind of was under the radar because we had so many high profile players at my school. But after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to Ohio State. This was summertime. So I was born in Ohio, but I had never been there in the winter. So I went back for an official visit in January. It was minus 13 or 14. I'd never seen snow. I had never been in the cold. As soon as the plane landed, I was like, how do people live in these conditions? Like, I didn't understand. I seen it on TV, but I couldn't understand how people actually lived in those conditions. Yeah. And so they put us in a limo, and we were going to the school. We drove past the bank. It said negative 13 or 14. I made up in my mind at that point I was not going to Ohio State. I didn't tell them until I got back home, but I was like, there's no way I can survive in this weather. Like, how do you go outside? How do you get from one place to the other in these conditions? I've been in Florida my whole life, and so that's when I changed to Georgia Tech. But to answer your other question, I was too big to play football when I was young, and it wasn't fat. I was just heavy. I was just a big kid. My growth spurt, I was, ahead of the curve growth wise. So I was too heavy up until maybe like 12. And so my mom took me to the YMCA when I was like 6 or 7. She's like, okay, you need to find a sport to play. And they just had these diagrams on the counter. I remember it like it was yesterday. And so I just pointed to one because I didn't know what any of them meant. Turns out it was soccer. Okay. And so, so she took me out and put me on the soccer field. I refused to play. Like, I just sat there and picked the flowers. But I was 6 and 7. Kids do that anyway. That's what kids do. Yep. And so the way she tells us, somebody like kicked the ball, hit me in the head, and then after that, I was the best player on the field. So I played soccer up until, I was 11 or 12. And by that point, I was so good at soccer. I had gotten a couple of invitations to go to Europe and play. Wow. And, I was soccer to the core, you know what I'm saying? So there was really no way that football could take that away because I love soccer so much. And if there was, the opportunities like there are today, in the 90s, I probably would have chose to play soccer. But there was barely any scholarships. There was the MLS was just starting, so it was like a fledgling league. So it wasn't like, something that people really were striving for. But soccer is my thing, man. And as of maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, I would go out to the soccer park out here and play 7-side and stuff like that. So nice. Yeah, man, it's a 1A, 1B type thing,
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So then talk about playing there at that high school and playing, the what was it, the T option?
Yeah, man, we had a lot of small offensive linemen, like, 170, 80, 90 pound, guards. We did a lot of pulling, a lot of traps, stuff like that. We did have one big guy, center, he was like 6'5", like 290. He ended up going to University of Florida. My senior class had 10 guys signed D1, which was the biggest D1s from one school at the time. Since IMG has sports academy, IMG Sports Academy has eclipsed that, because people go there to play sports and, and occasionally look at a book, that's what that school is about. So it was crazy, man. We worked real hard, and I would say that even though we had so much talent, like we had like our very talented guys, but then the rest of our team was very, very small. Yeah. So we were very top heavy as far as, athleticism, but we were super disciplined because we worked so hard and we trained so hard that, we were just, a really, really good team. So it was always, and Florida football at the time was big. We had quite a few teams. I think, what's that guy's name? His name is Thaddeus Bullard, but he's a pro wrestler now. He was actually one of the top players in the nation, like top 10 at defensive end. He played at a team in Live Oak, Swanee. We played against Adrian Peterson, the one who played at Chicago. That was the All-American running back at Georgia Southern. He played at Alachua Santa Fe. They were a big rival of ours. They had a really good team. Just country boys just could really play. And so it was highly competitive back then, man, and it was a lot of fun. And we had to travel a lot, man. Like, we drive 13 hours to Key West to play, various schools, because some of the schools in Jacksonville just wouldn't play us. They didn't want to play us, So we'd have to travel really far to find teams. Actually, we came to Atlanta to play a school my senior year, Marist. That's a big private school up here. We came up here and played Marist, and that was a close game, a nail biter that we pulled off at the end. So, yeah, it was cool.
Did playing in that system, that type of offense, help, like, you feel comfortable to go to play in Georgia Tech's triple option?
No.
Yeah.
No, because it was a triple option, but our offensive coordinator was Ralph Friedgen. He came to Georgia Tech from San Diego, running a pro style offense. So we were a pro offense with a side of triple option. You know what I'm saying? Like, the triple option was used to open up the pro offense. But a lot of our playbook and routes were straight out of the playbook that he ran with Sean Jefferson and Tony Martin, who both went to the Pro Bowl when he was in San Diego. Matter of fact, I think he was there when they went to the Super Bowl. So those guys were unbelievable. So we watched a lot of, and I'm literally this is my first time like full time lining up a wide receiver. So it was a culture shock to me. Just because a lot of these guys, they play wide receiver. I didn't even really run routes in high school. Like I would just go deep, it's just like, okay, go deep, we throw you the ball, score a touchdown, and then go to the sidelines. And then you come out there like maybe 3 or 4 plays a game. I never played like full series at wide receiver. So it was nothing similar whatsoever. So it was definitely a culture shock trying to learn how to play, wide receiver as a freshman at Tech.
Yeah, and starting, so 1998, 1999 were your big seasons there. 46 catches, 973 yards, and 9 touchdowns in 98, which was then the Georgia Tech record for receiving yards in a season, right?
Yeah. So I ended up my freshman year, end of my freshman year, we had spring practice. Spring practice was the worst death than practice in high school that I've ever experienced. I've never seen like with Ralph Region, whoever was the Z receiver, which is the split end that goes deep all the time. I never saw anybody survive spring practice and keep their starting position. Like myself, my brother-in-law, who played, who was also a star at Tech and played in the NFL for a few years. He at the end of training camp, he didn't survive either. He lost his starting job. So at the end of my freshman year, I went into training camp spring camp as the starter, and it was just so hard. Like you literally had to run post route after post route after post route, no break. And then as soon as you slowed down, they were going to throw you the ball, and it was going to go too far, and you're going to look stupid, and you're going to get cussed out. Like it happened. It was like a daily basis. Wow. And then they were going to use that as grounds to demote you. And so I ended up getting demoted going into the season, and then they promoted one of our seniors. His name was Mike Sheridan to the starting position. And then over the summer, he ended up getting hurt. I don't remember, we were doing like routes, 7-on-7, just kind of getting the guys together, kind of not legal practice thing that we used to do that I'm sure everybody did. Yeah. And so he blew out his PCL or something like that. So I ended up, thrust back into the starting position, and, came into the season, and, they didn't really expect a lot out of us. And, it just kind of blew up from there, playing with Joe and, having a year under my belt in the offense. I was still learning to be a wide receiver. But, I kind of, Friedgen kind of, he made plays that were to my strengths. And, I just thrived on one-on-one things because I always took that personal. Like, you're not going to cover me. Like, it's me versus you. You're not going to beat me. Like, that was my whole thing. Like, there's no way that's going to happen. That's cool. So, he was very good at exploiting matchups and getting those one-on-one coverages. And then we just started lighting people up, and, I had a big year that year.
Yeah, and the team would go 10-2 in the season, winning the co-ACC championship, capping off the season with a Gator Bowl victory over Notre Dame. Yeah. It had to be a hell of a year in 1998 to be a part of. What was it like playing the Gator Bowl against Notre Dame?
Well, it was cool because it was in Jacksonville, so I grew up there. So they had, and we practiced at my high school.
Damn.
So we got to practice. At my school, my head coach was out there, and it was awesome. There's a lot of fanfare and stuff leading up to it. And I was like, well, I got to play well now since I'm at home. And we played Notre Dame, and it had Autry Denson, who was, fantastic. Yeah. And, they were talking mad trash leading up to that, man. They were like, because they have events, and they bring both teams to the events. And, man, they were talking all kinds of trash, man. They were like, because everybody expected them just to beat us because we were just getting back on the map, Okay. We were 10-2, but the ACC hadn't yet ascended to, where it is now or where it's been, lately.
Yeah.
We had a couple people, like I think North Carolina got in the top 10 a couple times. And then obviously perennial Florida State But everybody else in the ACC was kind of scrapping and clawing, trying to get back on the national map. So we were just getting back up there. And Notre Dame was perennial, team that was, top 10, top 15, And so they were talking mad trash and stuff like that. And so we ended up, it was a back and forth game. And I ended up with, I think, 4 catches and 128 yards. I was roasting their DBs, and they were talking all kinds of trash leading up to that game. And so I got the MVP. It was a co-MVP, actually, with Joe. And that was awesome, man, just to be in my hometown and, to get an MVP and a bowl game. And actually the next day I went to the Jaguars game with my uncle who played 10 years in the league. Damn. And we were sitting there, and there was 2 guys in front of us, and they were just talking about the game I had the day before. That they had no idea I was sitting right behind them.
That's so cool.
My uncle, being who he is, he had to brag. He was braggadocious. He's like, "Yeah, this is him right here. This is my nephew." So yeah, man, that was an awesome weekend. Awesome, a great day, and that was one of the most memorable days of my sports career for sure.
Nice, that's awesome. And then in 1999, you would record 44 catches, 860 yards, 5 touchdowns. The Yellow Jackets would go 8-4 and get back to the Gator Bowl, but would lose to Miami. A big game that year was the second game of the year, going into Tallahassee against the number 1 ranked Florida State Seminoles.
Yeah,
that had to be a crazy atmosphere. Prime time, ABC in Tallahassee. What was that atmosphere like for that game?
Oh, it was crazy, man, because, they were ranked number 1 or 2 in the nation. And they won a national championship that year. Yeah. So it was crazy going in there, man, because, they had the number 1 ranked defense. And as for us, I was the only proven commodity at receiver at the time. Yeah. And so, we went in there, and the year before, they beat the brakes off of us at Tech. They hyped up the game, and then they beat the brakes off of us. It was like 48-3 or something. It was something ridiculous, 48-7 maybe. It was a lot of points to a little bit of points. So they just completely shut us down. So, and we hadn't played them close at all. Every year it was a beatdown. It was a drudgery. And so, we go in there. I think by the time we got there, we were, top 5 or 10 or something in offense. Well, we might have been higher than that. I don't remember exactly where we were, but it was like highly ranked offense versus, highly ranked defense. They had a bunch of guys like Corey Simon and a bunch of other guys that end up going in the NFL draft. And, we were just like undermanned, talent-wise by far. And, man, we went in there and I can't remember. Yeah, I think it was like the 3rd or 4th play of the game. We threw – so I ended up we had a bunch of running backs get hurt, so I ended up having to line up at running back a lot. And just because of my size, they decided to put me at running back to fill in the blank for some of these, running backs that got injured. But they ran a play with me out of the backfield and got me on a linebacker, and he was toast. So I caught an 80-yard touchdown. Yeah. And then we were like, oh, okay, let's, it's like, let's go. Like, we're here to play. Like, y'all not just going to walk over us this year. Like, we're really here to play. And so it was literally back and forth, man. And we had that game won. Like, we had the game won. My brother-in-law, he broke out. He had like 7 catches for like 160, 70 yards or something. He had a bunch of yards. We both went over 100 yards. I only had 2 catches, but that was because they were determined not to let me beat them. There were plays where they were running 2 and 3 guys over to cover me, and my brother was just roasting them. He was just roasting them. So we hung in there, man. We had them. They had to go like 80 yards near the end to beat us. Like, they had to go, and they were converting like 3rd and like 15, 16. Jeez. Peter Warwick. I'm like, what? And he was like wide open. I'm like, no. You can have a safe defense, but somebody's got to follow Peter Warwick around. You cannot. You can't do it. Not in college. You're talking about arguably one of the greatest players in college football history. And we ended up losing that game by, a few points at the end. But the atmosphere there was nuts, man. It was nuts because they were really – it was, on ESPN. Yeah. And, so we got up for that game. And we really proved that we could play with anybody, in that game, playing with those guys. And in Tallahassee on their home field and just roasting. We had like 500 yards of offense. So like
Wow.
that put Joe on the the Heisman Trophy track, on the Heisman Trophy watch, because they had the number one defense until after that game, because we put the torches to them.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounded like a great game. The atmosphere had to be incredible. I can just imagine, you playing the game, your controller's shaking like crazy. And
Yeah,
I
man.
like,
Look, I would go to Florida, University of Florida, Florida State. We go to their games because they were so close to Jacksonville when I was in high school, and I never would imagine, sitting there in high school watching those games, because we went to the Florida and Florida State game where it's the big crazy comeback with Warrick Dunn and those guys.
yeah,
And we went to Florida. Every time there was a Florida State game, it was like jockeying for tickets. So the highest ranked players always got tickets.
that's cool.
So we'd always, finagle a way to get us all to that game. And I just never would have thought, that I'd be out there playing on that, in that type of format, in that situation. So yeah, definitely a dream come true in that aspect.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Then in 2000, you would declare for the draft. Going into the 2000 draft, you'd be selected in the third round pick, number 69 overall by the Chicago Bears. Same draft class as Tom Brady, Brian Urlacher, John Abraham, some big names.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on how the draft unfolded? Did you expect to go higher, or were you happy with where you went? And then were you first that question? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I did kind of expect to go higher just based on, the things I've been hearing, leading up to the draft. And, but it didn't pan out that way. So, I trained in New Orleans. I actually got to train with Tom Brady in New Orleans. Like, we worked out together at Tom Shaw's speed camp down there. Yeah. And, this is before, Tom Brady as we know him today, just a good guy. We just be out in the field, doing routes and stuff like that. And so, I would catch up to him, whenever we played him. But it was a long process, man. It was a long process. And, looking back on it, to have been 3 years removed from playing safety, in high school, and to have gone to college. I didn't play any of my freshman year. I sat behind two really good wide receivers at Tech. And I think I did kick returns my freshman year. And in 2 years, basically, to get myself into a position where, I had an opportunity to go play in the NFL, I thought was just an attribute to my hard work, which, I kind of adopted from my family, which is very blue collar, very hardworking. And, just being blessed with a lot of God-given athletic ability and determination, what I'm saying? So I couldn't complain, man. I had the opportunity to play professional football, which it never even crossed my mind. Like, when I went to college, there was never that. Even after my sophomore year, like, it didn't even cross my mind. And then at the beginning of my junior year, people started saying, "Oh, you leaving early?" I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" Like, it hadn't even crossed my mind to even play in the NFL. Like, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking about the season and winning and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm like, "You guys are crazy. I don't know what you're talking about." So by the end of the year, I took a beat in my junior year because I was playing running back, to fill in these spaces. I did a lot of decoying, because people were double covering me regardless. Like, they didn't care who else beat them. They just wanted to make sure it wasn't me. And then the first game I got single cover was against Maryland, because they had just held Florida State to like 100 and something yards of passing offense. So they said they were going to come in and single cover us. And then I torched them for like 215 yards. Like, don't play me one-on-one, dude. Don't insult me like that. don't do that. But a lot of the year I played decoy, I played running back, but it was so hard on my body because I never came out the game. While the offense was built around Joe, the game plan was always built around me because I require so much attention. And so, I took a beating. I couldn't get out of the game. I covered punts. I returned kickoffs. And so we had the number one offense in the country. So I got to play running back, wide receiver. And then if we have to punt, which wasn't that often, I got to cover the punt. I got to return kickoffs. I took a beat, man. And like, we played Wake Forest late in the year. We lost that game. I pulled my hamstring. My body just couldn't take that beating. And so, I for too long because I was 215 pounds. I'm not like 160 pound, 70 pound guy that can run forever. And, I'm a big dude taking a beating. We got to block Anthony Poindexter type, safeties and stuff like that. And I just didn't think – I thought that, if I had to take this chance now because I didn't know how much more my body would be able to take of the college game. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So – and Joe was leaving, so they had no idea who was going to play quarterback the next year. So I just decided, hey, let's just go for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, because of my career at Tech, now that my brother-in-law had established himself, it's still going to be a lot more sharing and going around and stuff like that. And I didn't want to do any more decoying and, I was frustrated with how that season went because I felt like there was a lot of times I just got kind of overlooked. But, I was now playing in the NFL. So, I couldn't complain with, whatever round I was drafted in, regardless of, how the chips may have failed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And a good question. So going back to your decision on Ohio State, getting drafted by the Chicago Bears, you had to know cold weather was coming.
I know. So it's hilarious, right? So I was like, I tried to get away from the cold weather, and here I am anyway. You know what I'm saying? And it was crazy because we had Dick Duran up there my first year. We weren't that great. And then our offensive coordinator just packed up and left in December, like beginning of December. Left and went to BYU. Yeah, he's just like, yeah, I'm just going to take this job. And so he left. Like, so we showed up to the meeting, and he was gone. Like, the offensive meeting, gone. Just from Sunday to Monday, I think it was Monday, because we had to come in for meetings the day after the game. Gone. And so now we're just kind of mishmash putting stuff together. Yeah. And it was crazy, man, being up there. And Dick he's old school. So, we had this bubble where, when it was cold, you could go in the bubble and there's heat and stuff. He didn't believe in that. He's like, you guys got to play in this, so you're going to practice in it every day. And so, like, literally, we did not go in that bubble at all. Like, we literally just sit there and look at it because the outdoor practice field was right next to it. There was only, like, a couple of days where it was so cold, the field heaters could not thaw out the field. So it was like running on concrete with your cleats. Yeah. And or there's a couple of times where it's windy, and so the quarterbacks couldn't get the ball out past maybe like 5 yards. Like, they couldn't throw a 10-yard out because the wind was so strong. There was a couple of times like that, or like torrential rain where we would go in the bubble. But other than that, it was just unused. Like, but you can bet, like, so when Tampa, I think Tampa won the Super Bowl, they came to Chicago. It was the end of the year, so it was kind of meaningless. But they came up there, and it wasn't even that cold. But you could tell how Chicago got in people's heads because it'd be like maybe 45, 40 degrees, which isn't that cold. And people would come out there with their face masks and, their hand warmers. And we'd be out there like, like short sleeves and stuff. And you could tell when they were mentally defeated in warm-ups. Like, you can tell when they're just out of it. And we won every one of those games. So Tampa would come up there. It seemed like the NFL punished them by sending them to Chicago every December. Because it seems like every December we had to play Tampa. And when Tampa was, before they changed the divisions, because they changed the divisions, I think.
They got out of there. They were tired of doing that.
Right. And they lost every time. Like, they had they had nothing for it. And they were the best team. They were one of the best teams in the league at the time.
That's good. As a Bears fan, it's something that we take pride in, like that cold, like players coming out with short sleeves and everything all bundled up. Right.
And going back to that 2001 season, was the last year at Soldier Field when we went, was it 13-2 or 13-3 that year?
13-3,
that was the year we had those big comebacks against the Browns and the Niners. It was those last-minute interceptions, like the 49ers game, I think. We were down by like 20-something. And like the end of the third quarter, and people were leaving. Like, the stands were almost empty. Yeah. But by the time that game was over and we were getting ready to go to overtime, the people that were still in there, they were as loud as if the stadium was full. That season was magical, man. Like, it was unbelievable, the type of response, and even like my rookie year when we weren't very good, people still showed up a lot. People in Chicago are some of the most dedicated fans that you'll find. One of the best fan bases around. They're hard on the players, but they're one of the most dedicated fan bases you'll see. Is raining, which is always raining in Chicago, so people don't even think much about it. It's freezing. They're still out there. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like Green Bay, but the difference is Chicago, you got other stuff to do. In Green Bay, you don't have anything else to do. So Chicago fans are there because they choose to be. Green Bay fans are there because they don't have a choice. There's nothing else to do.
Yeah, my first ever Bears game, sitting there in the snow, watching the snowflakes fall into my beers. It's like, this is perfect. Like, this is football right here.
It's Chicago football, man. For sure.
I mean, those 2 pick sixes by Mike Brown in overtime, 2 weeks in a row. Never seen anything like that. I was a little kid, and I remember that vividly.
Right. It was crazy, man. And it's like we kept switching quarterbacks, I think. Actually, no, I think Shane was in there that time, both of those games, because I think Jim got hurt during one of those games. And then Shane came in. And so then people were just like, we're leaving. And then, next thing you know, once we got into 2-minute offense, it's like, we weren't as predictable. And, we just got to go out there and just call the play and huddle and run it. And we were really good. Our 2-minute offense was really good.
That's awesome. And then, so going to the playoffs that year, you guys would win the NFC Central, which sounds weird saying that.
Right. Right.
And then you'd host the Eagles in the divisional round of the playoffs, and but would lose starting quarterback Jim Miller in that game. You would record 4 catches for 30 yards and a rush for 15 yards as well. Did you see the hit on Jim Miller from Hugh Douglas? He got fined after the game, but didn't get flagged during the game. Did you think it was a dirty hit, or?
Honestly, man, I can't really remember. It was so cold. It was so cold. My family is very committed to, supporting me. Like, they left. They were at the game, and they left and went to a sports bar across the street and watched it on TV. That's how cold it was. It was so cold. And Hugh Douglas got me too. Like, I ran a shallow crossing route, and whoever was in there threw it like right to him, and I happened to be running in front of him, and he just took the paint off of my face mask. Like, wow. He was so big, man. He was so big. I wasn't hurt, but I had like grass all in my helmet, and so I tried to get up. I was a little bit woozy, so I was just kind of walking around in kind of circles. And so I tried to go back to the huddle, and one of our offensive linemen, he was like, no, you need to go to the side. He's like, no, you need to go that way. So I don't know, man. I just think he's so big, man. He falls on top of you. And this is back when they can just when they can land on you back then. Yeah. Like, you just don't have a chance, because Hugh Douglas was big, man. Like 270, man, 260, 270. It's just a ball of muscle, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And you credit to you on that toughness, getting hit by Hugh. I just watched a highlight of you making a catch, getting destroyed by Derek Brooks, but hanging on and making the catch.
Yeah, the thing about Derek, I remember that game. He was like my size, so it's like I can shake that off. If I know it's coming, I can shake it off. It's the ones you don't see them coming that hurt. Like when you catch it, you don't see them coming, and then they hit you. But Derek Brooks, I mean, he was a fantastic linebacker, but he wasn't the type of guy that was going to hit you and hurt you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, that's what's up. Then in 2002, you would start 14 games, record 51 catches, 656 yards, and 4 touchdowns. The Bears would struggle, however. After going 13-3 and winning the division, they dropped to 4-12. Quarterback issues were a big part of it. How tough is it on a locker room and being part of a locker room when you have such a letdown season like that?
Well, it was crazy, man, because I felt like we did the best with what we could. Like, we had like 12, 13 guys on IR that year. Yeah. It's the season after we, had a really good season. So we had to travel every week because we were playing at University of Illinois. Yeah. And that was miserable. So every week was like an away game. You got to go to the airport every single week. And then we kept getting guys hurt. And they had the worst hotels down there. Like, the hotel we stayed in was the best one down. And we had to stay like an hour away to find a decent hotel at the time. and like there was like hair matted on the walls. It was gross, man. Like I just couldn't sleep in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there was a couple games like New England. New England, we had them beat, and they came and Tom Brady to Kevin Falk, like at the last minute they beat us.
Yes.
We had New Orleans beat, last minute they beat us. We had Philadelphia beat. These are all playoff teams.
Mhm.
Last minute they come back and beat us. So we were in all of these games. And you know, when you know that you're competitive, it gives you the confidence to go out and fight because you know that you have a chance. Like we literally had guys come off the street and start like a week later, like coming off the street, you got like you sit out for maybe one game. Next week you're starting. Like it was that bad. That's how many guys we got hurt that year. And so I don't think it really affected our confidence as much as, you know, we just knew we had the injury bug that year. You know, we had guys, so many guys get hurt, and we were still competitive in pretty much all the games. Like there weren't any games that we really, you know, got blown out. And considering the circumstances where you got to travel so far every week, I think we did the best we could that year.
Yeah.
Was it really 4?
That takes away your home field advantage. Yeah. Huh?
We were 4-12 that year? I thought we had more. Oh, God. I didn't even know that.
I mean,
I forgot how bad that season was. Oh, my God.
It makes sense, though. Like, injury bug, I mean, that's sometimes like luck. Sometimes a great team, injuries will just beat you down, you know?
Right.
And then not being able to play in Soldier Field, it's like 16 road games, and that's got to wear
It's exactly that. And there's no way anybody would tell you that you're going to get your best season out of 16 road games. So, you know, I think we did the best with what we had and the amount of injuries. I mean, to add insult to injury, now you got to travel and you got most of your guys hurt, you know what I'm saying? And I think that year, is that the year we had Cordell that year? Or was that the next year?
I think you guys signed Cordell in 2003, the very next year.
Okay, the next year. Okay. Yeah. And then we had all the quarterbacks get injured. So there's one game, I think, where Jim got injured, and then Shane came in, or somebody
Chris
came in.
Chandler as well.
Yeah, and then what happened was Jim got injured, and then Chris Chandler came in for Jim. Chris Chandler got injured, so then Jim came back out injured because we didn't have any more quarterbacks. By the end of the year, we started I can't remember this guy's name. He played backup for Peyton Manning for a while in Indianapolis. And then by the end of the year, we had Henry Burris started the game.
Henry Burris,
Yeah, he played in Canada for a long time. So, I mean, that just kind of tells you the extent of all the injuries that we had. Like, we went through a lot of quarterbacks, man. And you can't win with that low of no continuity on offense, no consistency as far as who's on the field. And, you know, by the end of that year, we were just pretty much in the dump. So I don't think there's anything you can do when you got that many guys that get hurt. Your season just kind of goes in the dump. It was like everything that could go wrong that year went wrong. We would have easily been, I think, you know, a 9 to 11 win team. You know, if we had been playing in Chicago, and plus we were used to playing on grass because we still had natural grass at the time. And then you're playing on that turf, and their turf wasn't very good, you know.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like,
that turf. Yeah, man, it wasn't that good, and it felt like it was like too hard, you know, compared to other NFL fields because it's college field. And so, you know, we ended up with so many guys just get hurt that year.
Now, being a Bears fan, that's the question I got to ask you. What is it like to play wide receiver for an organization that just can't seem to get it right at the quarterback position? I mean, we're still trying to figure it out all these years later.
It's tough, man. You know, I think the conditions up there are so hard on the quarterback. You know, you see the guys who are throwing, I mean, Tom Brady wear a glove all the time, but, you know, it's one thing to be cold. But to be cold and windy is really hard. You know what I'm saying? Like, now you got to throw the ball. You got to adjust for the wind. The wind's blowing the ball all over the place. And so even, you know, you look back, even statistically, like go back to like Jim McMahon, like he didn't throw for huge numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like he wasn't like a big, you know, throwing for a whole bunch of numbers. So I think you just have to realize that is the type of game that you have to play. It's a gritty blue collar type of football in Chicago, and that's what the fans want, and that's what, you know, the organization has been trying to provide. And it doesn't matter. I mean, you bring people in from outside, you bring guys in from places that threw for a bunch of yards. I think, Jay Cutler threw for, quite a bit of yards. But I tell you, man, you let that ball go and there's a 10, 12 mile an hour wind, it's almost impossible to adjust for, and even if you throw the ball a lot, it's going to end up in somebody else's hands. Yeah. And so you got to have like some unbreakable type of confidence to be able to do that on a weekly basis. And it wears on you every day in practice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, along with the media and the fans.
Yeah, and then the media gets on you and the fans get on you, man. So, I mean, for Mitch, man, like, I've been there, man. The people in Chicago are ruthless, man. The media is ruthless, man. So I can't even imagine what Mitch is going through right now, man. Like, it's almost to the point where, you got to go somewhere and start over, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Get a fresh start, especially like, for a quarterback, you know what I'm saying, in that situation.
Yeah. To be fair, I wanted Deshaun Watson. I think he could have slung it through that wind, but
the thing is, when he's not feeling it, he can do something else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Deshaun doesn't, like, Mitch needs to throw for, 200, 250, 275 on a consistent basis for them to win. Yeah. Deshaun doesn't need to do that because Deshaun can throw for 100. I've seen him throw for 113, 118 yards and they win the game. It's kind of like, Lamar Jackson because he can make plays with his feet. He's an athlete. He's exactly the quarterback that Chicago should have got. But he fits Chicago, you know what I'm saying? A guy that can create plays with his feet, but is still very confident as a pocket passer. So I think he would have been the perfect guy. Or Mahomes, who seems like he's impervious to everything. Yeah. Mahomes seems like it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? But at the time, he was considered as a project coming out. He was considered as, like a 2-3 year project. And I think, Chicago's looking for somebody they had to thrust in there immediately. And with the toughness of the conditions and the fans and the media, if you break somebody's confidence, it's hard. You're not going to get it back in Chicago. Yeah, it's hard. The confidence is broken. Chicago's not the place to get it back.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, so then after the 2003 season, you'd sign with the Atlanta Falcons in 2004, and that had to be a breath of fresh air going to Atlanta and get an opportunity to play with Michael Vick, strong arm quarterback, and just as much fun as he is on the field. That had to be an exciting time for you.
Yeah, it was fun winning, man. But as a receiver, man, it was frustrating. We were the number 1 rushing team in the league. Yeah, and there was times we go into a team meeting, and it was me and Peerless, and I'd be like, "Hey, man, you might not get a ball thrown to you tomorrow," like at the meeting. They tell you that at the meeting, like you may not. You're the starting receivers, and we might not throw you the ball tomorrow. Like we might just run the ball the whole game. Yeah, like that's not something you want to hear. Yeah, and then it's like you see guys like T.O. or even I watch like Steve Smith, and it was important for a receiver to get kind of in a groove early. So even if they threw him like where they just didn't go anywhere, just turned and caught the ball just to get the ball in their hands, get it, get your first hit and get you into the flow of the game. And Atlanta, man, was like you could go 3 quarters and then now you got to catch a 70 mile an hour fastball from Mike Vick. And it was tough, man, and it was tough also because Atlanta's kind of like a mini Chicago media-wise. So they, they jump on these narratives. They're like, hey, man, nobody's getting open and stuff like that. And it wasn't that we weren't open. It was that our playbook got pared down because, they did not instill the confidence in Mike to keep the entire playbook. So throughout the course of the season, if he threw an interception on a play, it came out of the playbook. Like it got deleted. Yeah, and if he threw it like 2 times, 1 time in a game, it got deleted. 2 times in practice, it got deleted. So by the end of the season, we might have had like 15 plays total. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not an NFL playbook. You know what I'm saying? So it was highly frustrating. It was good to win. It was highly frustrating because a lot of the receivers took a lot of heat, but there's not much you can do when you throw them. There was a couple times where we only attempted like 10 passes, 12 passes in the game. What do you want the receivers to do if you're only attempting that, and I think he went like 7 for 10 in one game, and we won.
Yeah.
Like we blew the team out. Like you can't expect anything, from your receivers in those type of conditions. So, I think it was like, we're trying to do stuff, and he would drop back. And because of, he wasn't that tall. So there's a lot of times where he couldn't see you. And sometimes he would just drop back and know that he was going to run anyway and look down the field. So people would assume we weren't open, and we'd be open, but he was going to run anyway because it was his off. He did what he wanted to. Like Mike was not subject to any coach or anybody. Like he was superstar status in Atlanta. So
well, and that's a good point, because when you see him go to Philly and get with Andy Reid and give him that, empower him to throw the ball and have reads, he started to show, like, if he was Philly Vic in Atlanta, man, it could have been even better.
But I think if you watch, if you've heard him, speak since that, he said, going to prison was one of the best things that happened to him because it humbled him to the point where, he was so grateful to have another opportunity because he didn't think he'd have it. Because, they were protesting and everything in Philly.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
The PETA people went crazy. Yeah. And, it just humbled him to a point that, I got to make the most out of this. And so he took the time to actually learn. Whereas in Atlanta, they could meet with him all day. And he's just like, I don't care what you say, because they're going to blame everybody else anyway. So, I don't have to learn this. And, like I said, if he threw a pick on it, they didn't give him the opportunity to come back and try to fix it. They just took it out. You know what I'm saying? Because they didn't give him an opportunity to fix those mistakes, I don't think. And so when he was in Philly, he had to basically go in there and emulate something that he had seen instead of having everything built around him. You know what I'm saying? So I think he needed that to complete that transition. If you just tried to force it on him here, maybe somebody like Andy Reid or something could have done that. But, I just think he needed that to be in a specific mindset for that time in his career. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like he needed that humbling, like sometimes it's hard to get through to a player, especially it's understandable with Vic when he was so dominant in college and so dominant with his legs.
Right. Right. If it doesn't work, I'll fix it. You know what I'm saying? And that was his mindset. If I don't see something I like, I'll fix it. I'll make a play happen. You know what I'm saying?
That's very cool. Good analysis there. And I mean, so which do you remember is a question. Which do you remember being the craziest environment that you played in? We mentioned at FSU, and they were number 1 ranked. Soldier Field in the playoffs, big game against Philly, or the NFC Championship game at the Link when you're on the Falcons.
NFC Championship game, because we really weren't competitive in that game, man. Like I said, we had very few plays. And we struggled, Mike struggled against defense that had a lot of speed and
that was a really good
athleticism. And Philly's defense was really good, that year. And we couldn't get the running game going against them. We weren't going to all of a sudden beat a team that we couldn't run against. Like, we didn't have enough plays to beat a team with purely drop back passing. Our offensive line was small, so they weren't even built for holding up for a long time for him to throw the ball. So they built the offensive line around him too. You know what I'm saying? Because our offensive line wasn't very big. So that wouldn't be it. It was honestly those playoff games. Nothing could compare to that. That was even bigger than the FSU. Those 2 playoff games, really back-to-back weekends. I don't even remember which one came first. I think it was
Rams.
I'm talking about not playoff. Those 2001 season at Soldier Field.
Oh, the Browns and 49ers?
Yeah, I think it was the Browns first and then the 49ers, right? Yeah, I think those 2 games, man, like, especially to be back-to-back weeks and to have the same thing happen. Like, Mike it gets tipped and Mike catches it and runs a touchdown. Like, it was nuts. Like, you literally just ran around the field, like, screaming. Like, it was so loud, it felt like and like half the people had left. Like, it was literally like it felt like half the people left, but then when they were so loud, when you looked in the stands, it felt like everybody came back. But I know for a fact that a lot of people were outside of the stadium; they couldn't come back, and then they start hearing the cheers from outside. So I have no idea what happened, but it was something magic on that last year of Soldier Field for sure.
Yeah, Bears have recently. They got clubbed up. That locker room after those two had to be insane.
Oh yeah,
That
for sure, man. Yeah, I was blessed.
So, I mean, after 2005, were you ready to call it quits, or did you think about trying to play anywhere else, or what was your
Well,
mind?
so my last year going into in Atlanta, 2005, I got hurt in training camp, and I tried to play through it, and it just wasn't working. My knee started swelling up really bad, and I
Yeah.
just attributed because I was, like double moves, and being my size, I had to try to run routes like a small guy. I learned
Mm-hmm.
that in college, and
Mm-hmm.
it just took a toll on my body, man. My legs couldn't deal with all the routes every day, in and out of breaks. And this is something I told Calvin when I went back to Georgia Tech. I saw him
Mm-hmm.
working. I was like, look, man, you got to be easy on your body. You're bigger than little guys.
Yeah.
So you got to, if you want to stretch this out, you got to be easier on your body. Cause he was like 230,
Yeah.
230 something. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, you got to take care of your body. You got to minimize the impact on your body. I did none of that. Like I went all out all the time. And,
Yeah.
it finally caught up with me. I got injured in training camp, tried to play through it for a couple games. Then, I just kind of went through the season. And then finally I was like, I got to get this something done. Went and had surgery, arthroscopic surgery. And then it got worse.
Damn.
And that made it worse because I had a lot of pain. It was right under my kneecap.
Jeez.
And then I left. And then Atlanta, I didn't resign in Atlanta. And in the off season, I just said, okay, I'm going to take some time just to get myself right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I signed in Minnesota and went to training camp. And I went early. I went early with the rookies just so I could, try to get in early because I signed really late, like late July.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in early with the rookies, and after like a couple of days of two-a-days, my knee was the size of my thigh. Like I had a game-ready thing that the big sleeve they put on your leg to get, ice and stuff. I had one in my room. I was literally giving myself – I had some injections to put into my knee as anti-inflammatory. So I had to put a needle on my knee
Jeez.
and that was the scariest thing. I literally had to walk around for 30 minutes and convince myself to put this big, and it was a big old needle, to put some anti-inflammatories in my knee just to try to, to save my career. Well, that didn't end up working because then my left hamstring started to go out because I was overusing, my other leg.
Overcompensating.
I ended up getting released from Minnesota. Probably like a week later, New England called me. And, I talked to Tom a couple times after the game. He's like, man, we've been really we had to really game plan. We were intent on not keeping you from doing stuff, during the game and stuff like that. And so, I didn't talk to him, but New England called, and I was like, I didn't want to put myself in a position because if you go and then you get, cut twice back to back like that, regardless of what the reason is, the teams are going to stop. They're just going to be like, okay, something's wrong with him. It's going to be a red flag. And so I said, I'm going to go and try to get this fixed. So I got another arthroscopic surgery.
Jeez.
And so we took out like a dime-sized piece of cartilage from right under my kneecap. It just peeled off. So it was like a dime-sized piece of cartilage sitting right under my kneecap. So it hurt to run and stop. It hurt to do everything. And then my knee would swell. So we got that out. But now I got arthritis because we took all the cartilage out of my knee.
Jeez.
And so, I mean, I tried, man. I took anti-inflammatories. I did all the kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, my speed was gone because I couldn't push off of one leg. My top speed was good, but I couldn't run a good 40 because my knee hurt so bad on the start. So I was running like 4.6s and 4.7s. And like once I got going, my speed was good. Now people were shocked. They were like, they were used to me being fast. And they say, you look fast. Can't figure out why your time is slow. So this is actually before I went to Minnesota. And so I actually had to get a shot in my knee to just basically numb my knee for a couple of days. I went to Minnesota. I ran a 4.4 because I couldn't feel my knee. And so then they signed me, but then my knee just wouldn't hold up in training camp. And so then after that, I think I went to a couple places like Detroit. I went to, where was that? Washington. I went to Washington, did a workout for Washington. They were ready to sign me. And then the doctor who was like the alpha in Washington, there's a lot of horror stories about that guy. He failed me on the physical.
Wow.
So, yeah, they were ready to sign me. So that was disappointing. I thought I was going to get signed. And then after that, I think I maybe went on a workout in Detroit and Arizona. And they were just kind of like, yeah, but they already had pretty much – Dick Duran did me a favor because he was in Detroit. But they already pretty much had all their receivers there. And Arizona just drafted Larry Fitzgerald. So they were pretty much set at wide receiver. So, that was pretty much it, man. It's one of those situations where you try to fight because that's your career at that point. So you're going to do everything you can to try to save it. So after about a year and a half, man, I was like, yeah, this ain't working, man. We're just going to, move on to doing something else.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's got to be tough. I mean, but, you put so much, you put so much into your body and got a lot out of it, 6 years in the not-for-long league.
Right.
82 career games, 49 starts, 187 catches for 2,149 yards and 11 career touchdowns. Incredible career. I mean, it didn't end the way you wanted it to, but I mean, I think that's partly, I wish that we get to a point where college players can get paid a little bit because, like you said, you got put through so much at Georgia Tech and even like agree. In Atlanta, like when you're playing receiver, but you're like a blocking receiver most of the time, running and stuff. So I understand it's got to be frustrating, but still a hell of a career and a lot of good accomplishments in there.
Yeah, I agree, man, about the college players getting paid, man. I think, because guys get injured, they have lingering injuries that go on, and, you get blacklisted for stuff like that, and, your insurances won't cover it going down the line. Plus, they're going to sell your namesake in jerseys. Even if they put your name on there, they're going to sell it and make money. Yeah. So why can't they put, if they put $25,000 a year for all their scholarship players, that's like $2.5 million a year. Yeah. $25,000 a year that you don't get. Now, I think the worst thing you could do is give college players a bunch of money while they're still playing. So I say no, don't give it to them while they're playing. Put it in an escrow account that, that they get every year so that the time when you get done playing football, you have this money to go and do another career. Because your education is not the same as somebody who goes there purely to focus on school. You got to get up and lift weights early in the morning. You got to go to school. Then you got to go to practice. Then you got to go to meetings. It's not the same level of education that everybody else is getting.
Exactly.
And the schools are breaking it in big time. They're breaking in a ton of money. If you think the NFL makes billions of dollars, think about how many more big level schools there are than there are NFL teams. College football is making far more than the NFL. I bet you they won't disclose that. You know what I'm saying? If you add it all together, they're making billions. They might be making trillions of dollars a year. You know what I'm saying? It's that much in football and jersey sales, TV contracts, memorabilia. We're signing autographs. People pay to come for college players to sign autographs. College players get nothing out of it. I'm sorry, but your 4-year scholarship is not representative of all the money that you're making from that player. You know what I'm saying? It's not equal.
Imagine, for instance, how much money Johnny Manziel could have made just on autographs and memorabilia. Well, it's crazy, but
that's exactly right.
Thanks so much for taking some time, Des. It was great talking some football with you, talking about your career. It was an honor to have you on the show.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it, man. I'll get to talk sports. Oddly enough, I don't talk sports that often, so I actually like when I get the opportunity to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we'll have to get you back on again and talk some more. So thanks so much.
No doubt,
have a good one, Des. And
all right,
thanks again.
All right, thanks, man. Talk to you later.
Yeah, peace.
All right, later.